I was on my third flight when the email came in, "You're no longer needed." They thought I'd cry after getting fired mid-trip. 72 hours later, $1.5 billion and 3 clients vanished. The email came in at exactly 2:30 a.m. just as the cabin lights dimmed and the Sao Paulo skyline vanished beneath the clouds. Subject line, termination, notice effective immediately. For a few seconds, I couldn't process what I was reading. I kept blinking, thinking maybe the screen hadn't fully loaded, but it had. It was all there in perfect clarity: my name, my role, and the sentence that made my heart drop through the floor. Your employment with Venturon Technologies has been terminated, effective immediately. Your access has been revoked. Please do not return to any company, property, no call, no meeting, no thank you. Just this sterile final notice, and the sender Grayson Hart, the CEO himself, the very man who shook my hand 2 weeks ago and said, "You're the only one I trust to pull this off." Marin. I looked around the cabin. Everyone else was asleep, curled into their business class pods with eye masks and wine-stained pillows. I was alone with the hum of the jet engines and a silence that suddenly felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. 10 days, 3 continents, Tokyo for initial alignment, London for compliance, Sao Paulo for the close. I hadn't just participated in this deal. I'd built at 3 global giants, 1 synchronized move to Ventura's cloud system, $1.5 billion across 5 years. And now I didn't even work there anymore. I felt something cold settle in my chest, not rage, not yet, just disbelief, like someone had pulled the ground out from under me while I was still mid-step. I stared at the laptop in front of me for another full minute, then without saying a word, I reached under the seat and pulled out a second laptop, matte black, unbranded and encrypted, the one no one at Venturon knew existed. I opened it, logged in, watched the screen blink awake, and I smiled. They thought this was the end of my journey. They had no idea I'd already started another one. 3 weeks earlier, I was standing in that same glass-paneled boardroom on the 32nd floor, watching grown men scramble to save a collapsing $400 million contract. The client, a notoriously difficult European consortium, had walked out mid-negotiation. Legal was in panic. Finance was pointing fingers, and the VP of Global Sales had nearly burst into tears. I didn't wait to be asked. I just walked in, grabbed the abandoned proposal from the table, rewrote the core structure in 20 minutes, and requested a private call with the consortium's head delegate. By the next morning, the contract was not only salvaged, it was expanded to include 2 new territories. That wasn't my first miracle for Venturon. It was just the most recent one. After the win, there was a champagne toast in the executive lounge. People clapped. Grayson gave one of his hollow grins and said, "Now that's the kind of leadership we need at the next level." Someone even slipped a promotion rumor into the hallway chatter. Executive Vice President Global Strategy. The title sounded ridiculous, overblown and overdue, because I wasn't just a closer. I was the firewall, the one they called when the men in suits couldn't land the plane. I'd negotiated with energy giants, telecom empires, and foreign ministries. I spoke 4 languages, kept 2 phones, and lived out of airports for 7 years. I made Venturon look far more stable than it really was, and still, the title never came. A week after the champagne, I was told the promotion was in progress, then under review, then silence. At first I thought I was being paranoid. Maybe they were restructuring. Maybe HR was slow. Maybe for once it wasn't personal. Then I overheard it. It was during a board lunch. I was in the adjoining conference room preparing a portfolio. The sliding door had been left slightly open. "I mean, come on," one board member chuckled. "Marin's brilliant, but let's be honest, she walks into a room and no other guy wants to speak. She dominates every pitch." Another replied, "Yeah. She's not exactly EVP material. She's more field ops." Field ops? That like I was some glorified negotiator. They could fly around and then forget about that moment stuck with me longer than the missed promotion, because the truth was clear. They didn't want to promote me. They wanted to contain me, too confident, too polished, too many wins that couldn't be redirected to someone else. I was the one they called when the deals needed saving, but never the one they wanted at the table when credit was handed out. I stood there in that empty conference room holding the portfolio I'd spent weeks building, and realized something bitter but undeniable. It wasn't about merit, it was about threat perception. The quiet ones got elevated. The loud ones, especially the ones like me, got sidelined. And yet, I didn't storm out. I didn't raise hell. I returned to my desk, booked 3 back-to-back international flights, and got to work on the biggest deal of the company's history, because if they wouldn't give me the title, I'd build one of my own. It's funny how betrayal rarely arrives with a loud crash. Sometimes it drips in like a slow leak, unnoticed at first, until you're standing in a room ankle-deep in water, wondering when it started. A year ago, Mallory Hart was in trouble. She had just been hired into Venturon as a strategic advisor, a vague title padded by Legacy Grayson's daughter. She had no technical background, barely 2 years of corporate experience, and one very large mistake: an unauthorized data transfer during a client demo that accidentally exposed personal information from a pilot partner in Singapore. It should have been a public scandal. The legal team panicked, the marketing department froze, and Grayson, he called me clean it up quietly, he said over the phone. She didn't mean to. She just didn't know. I didn't argue. I pulled every connection I had worked around the clock to contain the leak, and spun the story into a beta testing glitch that never made it past trade blogs. I even took the media call myself so her name wouldn't appear in any press notes. No one thanked me. I didn't ask for it. I told myself it was loyalty, that protecting the company meant protecting everyone in it, even the CEO's daughter. But loyalty starts to rot when it isn't mutual. 3 days before my trip across continents, I opened a shared drive to finalize our pitch materials for the Trident deal. These were the slides I'd been refining for weeks: charts, analytics, proposal structure, all laid out with precision. There they were, perfect, exactly how I'd left them, except for one detail: the document properties listed the author as Mallory Hart. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she had downloaded them and accidentally saved over. But as I clicked through the deck, I realized she had made subtle edits, rephrasing bullet points, adjusting the layout slightly, but keeping my entire structure intact. The bones were mine. The pitch was mine.